What is up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we are ranking the albums of At the Gates. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Alright, let's kick it off right at the beginning with this legendary Swedish melodic death metal band, forerunner of the genre. Their first album is The Red in the Sky Is Ours in 1992, and it's an interesting start. They definitely don't have their kind of fully formed sound yet. More of a grindy vibe in some areas. Also, the guitars and drums have kind of like an early black metal sound in some ways. The title font even kind of reflects that a little bit. It's something I feel like Fenriz would have been a part of around this time. The string intro on Windows is kind of interesting, and especially so within context of having heard the new album now, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. We will work our way there. As far as this album goes, it's pretty low. I'm going to put it at D tier. Not terrible, but as far as differentiating each of the albums in terms of which ones I think are better, it makes sense to start something at this level. Then in 1993, we have With Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness. What a great title, especially for this era. Very heavy, but also very dark. You start to hear them sounding a little bit more like At the Gates at this point. It's also more in line with other melodic death metal classics around this time. Some cool dynamics here too, with songs like Light of Christ, The Break of Autumn, and The Architects. Lots of neat little start-stop moments in terms of the performances. Pretty solid effort. I enjoy quite a bit. We're going to jump up 2 levels here. I'm going to put this one at B tier. All right, but now we're really getting into kind of the core of their discography with Terminal Spirit Disease in 1994. And to me, this is where At the Gates truly becomes At the Gates, fully formed into Voltron, ready to go. They actually wanted to write an EP at this time, but Peaceville, their label, wanted a full length, so the compromise was tacking on those live tracks at the end. The Swarm is like the epitome of what I associate with 90s melodic death sound alongside the likes of The Gallery and The Jester Race. I love the strings again and the acoustic elements on this one. So many great pace changes all over this thing, just really fun, really enjoyable, really consistently engaging. You've got Forever Blind, The Beautiful Wound in terms of really standout tracks, but really all of them are great. I'm going to go ahead and put this album at A tier, not quite S tier. Because we all know what's going to happen here, I have to reserve that spot for 1995's Slaughter of the Soul. We all knew it was going to happen. I'm just going to plop it up there. Absolute classic, arguably the most important melodic death metal record of all time. It's the blueprint not only for the entire Gothenburg movement, but also the coming waves of metalcore with bands like Darkest Hour, like it or not, for better or worse. There's a reason why I included this in my melodic death metal albums for dummies list, of course. It is S tier not only for the band, but for the entire genre in general. Much deserved. But then we had a really lengthy hiatus until their return with At War with Reality in 2014. This was their first album after 9 years of waiting, and the last album with co-founding guitarist Anders Björler. I got really hyped for this one when the title track dropped. Man, that is a banger. That is a great song. They're still dropping great singles right to this day. Had me excited, but ultimately, I gotta say, I was kind of disappointed. There are more slower tracks on here, like Heroes and Tombs, which really struck me. Personal taste, definitely a factor here. But then there's also some bangers like Eater of Gods, The Conspiracy of the Blind, which has that great classic hook. The Book of Sand has its moments too. Ultimately, it's kind of a mixed bag, and I'm gonna piss some people off because I would rank this one a bit lower. I know some people really love it. I will say on re-listen in preparing for this tier list, it actually got bumped up a little bit. I was prepared to put it at C tier, but I kind of like it a bit more now. I'm gonna go ahead and put it at B tier at this point. Kind of like a B-, I would say. And then we got to Drink from the Night itself in 2018. similar reactions to this one as well. I had a little bit lower expectations going in because we didn't have the big lead up. We didn't have me coming off of like their best album ever. I felt like, okay, this band is capable of making stuff that maybe I'm not as into. So yeah, I had lower expectations, but again, the title track hit and got me pretty pumped again because once more, solid song. What a great way to lead off your album marketing. But ultimately, I was let down again, maybe even a little bit more so than the previous one. I much more enjoyed Thomas's work with The Lurking Fear in this era, actually, but there are some other solid songs. A Stair Bound in Stone, In Death They Shall Burn. I love the strings on The Moody Closer, The Mirror Black, and thankfully, we're going to get some more of that, just as a little teaser here, but I'm not quite there yet. So for this one, unfortunately, it's not very consistent throughout, and again, I think I'm really going to piss people off with this one. I know some people who held this in really high regard. It was pretty critically acclaimed, too, so I will admit that I feel like maybe I'm in the minority with this. More people enjoy this, but as always, this is totally subjective, it's crazy I have to say that, but your opinion on music and the rankings of albums in particular is completely you. It is not something that other people have to agree with, nor should they, because that would be super boring, and then we'd all be sheep. So, that all said, I'm going to go ahead and put this at C tier.
Yeah, well, that's just like... your opinion, man.
But that brings us to 2021 with The Nightmare of Being, and I was shocked with this one. I had very low expectations going in. In fact, I would call myself pretty cynical about At the Gates at this point. I was kind of already expecting at this point to just straight up not enjoy the album. The singles that they played leading up to it too didn't do much for me. I was like, yeah, sounds like At the Gates. I'm not particularly impressed though, not particularly blown away, but you know what? I can admit when I'm wrong. In this case, I was wrong. This is their most dynamic record to date. I won't say that it's their best album to date. It's definitely too early to say that anyways, but it is definitely their most interesting, and as far as just the composition and the arrangements go, it's very impressive. I am very just blown away by how it defied my expectations, and it's easily at least the best since Slaughter of the Soul. I especially love the additional instrumentation, and again, the more thoughtful approach to the songwriting and the arrangements, and I kept teasing, like, they teased these little string elements throughout their discography, but they only kind of like played with it. They just sort of like toyed with it and like, hey, this is a neat little thing, right? Here, they fully embraced it, and it's not the whole album. There were some other surprises too that I don't even want to spoil, and I will talk about more in my full review of the album that you can check out at some point watching this, hopefully. But suffice it to say, very impressive. I'm going to go ahead and put it at A tier. It's really good. It's really solid. So, not bad. Top 3, and you're well into your career at this point. So very cool. But yeah, those are my rankings of the At the Gates albums. And now you can let me know down in the comments, how would you rank them? I will leave a link to this actual tier list so that you can create your own and share it. Maybe even put it on the Discord where you can find us and chat with us. But also don't go anywhere because I got plenty more videos for you to check out. I have a ton of these tier lists. I actually have a whole playlist of them that you can check out right there. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.